This meeting is being recorded.
All right, my dears, I think we are recording. Hello, 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 hello. Hmm. Hmm. So, if you are watching this, if you're just joining me, just inviting us all to take a big collective inhale and exhale. And if you need to do that a couple more times, take your time. Inhale, exhale until you kind of feel like your body and soul have landed together in one place, wherever it is you are landed, whether that's sitting, standing, washing the dishes. Um, you don't really have to be watching this. You can listen to this podcast style if you'd like. I am Jenn Plotnikoff, and I never talk about this subject, but I think that it's really important that we talk about this subject. Particularly, it is super deeply rooted to all of the things that I speak to, that I teach to, that I work with, and that is money. Money. So, as we land, I'm just going to give you a quick no, not quick at all. That is a lie. I'm going to give you a kind of a structure about what how I'm going to do this video, what I'm going to talk about. And I normally do these videos live, but I thought I would do a recording um, just to kind of let this trickle into different avenues and spaces and places. Also, hopefully, to make this a conversation that is both self reflective and also shareable. I think it's a really important conversation. And I don't often see this particular flavor or lens talked about, and the importance of it is like we really need to talk about this thing. So the structure. I'm going to talk a little bit about my teach or my message around money. And then afterwards, I also want to talk a little bit about how I work with this in my practice. So I'm going to talk about different offerings that I have currently. So if you're watching this sometime in the future, that might not be applicable. However, the core of my teaching is around this. So I just wanted to let you know in advance that I'm going to talk about my work towards the end of this video. So that's the format. I also want to invite you to engage and share with this. First, sit with it. Notice as I'm talking about this subject, notice how your body is responding. Notice if you feel the need to argue with what I'm saying. Notice if you feel like there's something that really resonates with you in a really truthful and honest way. Notice what kind of body sensations start to arise. Notice your breathing. It's one of the reasons why I invited everyone to do a big inhale and exhale and just landing into your body before I kind of come into this teach, because I am, wanting to land us or kind of bring us down from this kind of more ethereal teaching around money that I see a lot, and mental kind of stuff, a little bit more landing onto the ground and landing onto the earth plane, and hopefully also connect some of the pieces and beliefs and learnings and teachings that I see out there with a more practical and grounded and rooted place to land them. So, just as a little bit of a background on what inspired this video. So, when we when we talk about money, it's really interesting. The thing that I was really noticing in my own money research and money, life, as well as just in the collective world. Hmm. There are kind of these, teachers on manifestation and abundance. And there's a common thread that I wanted to speak to. And I didn't want to speak to this thread as being wrong, but I feel like there is a really important missing piece and component that can actually help to anchor these teachings in a more real and more tangible way. So the thing that I see a lot is there is a lot of people, myself included, we are working on these different beliefs that we might have had, the programming that we might have received around money, around abundance, around what that means. And this is a really huge topic. And I think it is really wise to kind of look into and look deeper into our own programming of what we were taught from our parents, from our culture, from society around what money means, what we should do, the shoulds, and also some of the like shaming around money, because there is a lot of cultural shame around money, right? It's like the three taboos in Western culture is to talk about um, sex, money, and politics, right? So we're like hitting on one of those really, and it's almost even more taboo than sex and politics in a way, because there are, things that we're allowed to talk about in our society in kind of this safe way. But when it comes to things like debt, when it comes to things like the practical things that we often worry about that cause us stress, um, that cause us to actually make decisions in abandonment and sometimes in self abandonment in order to serve this thing called money. And so we can really get in our head, and we can really get into a place of like working and working and working to kind of uncover these, money beliefs and uncover all these things. So, maybe you haven't even kind of gone down that rabbit hole, but for those of you who have gone down the rabbit hole of, you know, constantly excavating stuff to fix around money, I want to address that too, because here's the thing. Here's the piece. If like you've only made it, if you only make it to this piece, this is the whole point of the video. Okay. We can't talk about healing our money stuff without talking about safety and security. We can't. We just simply cannot avoid it. And here is something I see a lot in talks around money and approaches to the more spiritual essence of the abundance teachings, which I think it's important. Like, it is really important. I'm not saying it's not true, it is true. But until we actually can ground what a true sense of safety and security feels like in a tangible way in our being, we're always going to be chasing for a sense of security outside of ourselves. And this is part of this, money healing paradox that I see a lot, and that I've ridden that train a lot, right? I'm human too. And I know that being in this experience really does require certain levels of being able to physically take care of ourselves, because we do need food, we do need shelter, we do need basic medical care, we need some basic elements in this physical world in order to have our biological needs met. And we also live in a society where money is the access point for taking care of those biological needs. So I just wanted to say this first and foremost is money is part of safety and security. Money is part of our survival. A lot of spiritual teachers and a lot of abundance teachers don't explicitly talk about this. And I think that it is actually a huge disservice to the spiritual teachings, because what happens is it puts us in a dichotomy and a polarity of either or. And it's not either or, it's both. And this is the piece that I really want to land, because here's the thing is we can actually hold our beliefs that hold us back in a bigger field of connection, of support, in a tangible way. I'm going to say that in a little bit of a different way. We can know what safety and security feels like even if we don't have a lot of money. Even though we know that we need money to take care of ourselves. So even though what I just said seems paradoxical, right? We can both recognize at the same time, I need money for my survival, and I know on a cellular level, my safety, I am safe, I am secure, and I am home, and I have this rooted sense of belonging in my body, in this physical world at the same time, right? What it's actually about is our relationship to the physical world. It's actually about our relationship. So our relationship with feeling secure and safe in our body, like just our existence, that acceptance of existence, is an acknowledgement and landing that can then translate to our relationship to being taken care of in a physical way. That can involve money, and it can also involve other resources. It can also involve time, other people. It can involve relationships. It can involve opportunities. It can involve creativity. This is really the realm of true abundance that most of us are reaching for when we think about money. This is often kind of the fantasy thing that we're wanting. It's actually deeper. It's actually a lot more deeply rooted, because if we think about why most of us are actually attached to, or I've seen this whole addicted to money. Of course, we are addicted to the thing that we need to survive. We need to acknowledge that we have a relationship that correlates to our survival, right? The other truth that I think is really important is that this sense of safety and security is also not necessarily in direct relationship with the amount of money you have. So this is where, and this is where I can speak from my own personal experience, where I have been in situations where I had the money. I can remember in my early 20s needing a car, needing to buy a car, and not wanting to spend over a certain dollar amount on said car. And there was, I remember going out car shopping with my boyfriend at the time's dad. Thank you, Rick, who was a mechanic, had some wonderful mechanical knowledge. And so I was feeling very fortunate and blessed to have, his guidance in my car shopping adventures. And I remember landing on this little Toyota RAV4, which for me at the time was like the perfect car. And at the time, I looked at the price, the sticker on the price, and I was like, I don't have that money. Like, I actually didn't have the amount of money on the asking price. And I think it was around, I'm going to give you numbers because I think it's kind of fun to play with that. It was a used car. I think it was around $12,000 for this little RAV, and I didn't have $12,000 in my bank at the point at that moment. And the salesman and Rick, chatted, and in that conversation, we both asked him, can you go down in price? And he came down to, I think, around like $9,000, and I was like, I actually just don't have that. And we were about to walk away, and as we walked away, the seller said, "Look, I bought this car for 5 grand. I want to make at least $500 profit on it." And Rick turned around and he was like, "Sold." And I said, "Wait a minute. I I don't want to spend that much money on a car. I want to spend less money on a car." And so the seller agreed to let me have a little bit of time. And what I realized was I think I had around $6,000 in my savings. So I had enough to buy the car, but I would have used my whole savings for the car. So my security was tied to having this like cushion, you know. And there was a deeper part of me that knew that was like, it was a yes. It was a yes for me. And in my logic and in um my own, money story at the time and my own patterns, it was like it was really hard for me to spend that much money. But I had the money. I had it. The thing that was causing the sense of like scarcity and fear and survival instincts was very real, but I had the money. So I bought the car. And of course, I made more money and I had more savings afterwards. So it all worked out. But what I'm saying is the interesting piece is I remember that piece of my life where my level of safety and security around money had nothing to do with the dollar amount that I had in my bank account. Absolutely nothing. So even though I had money in my bank account, my fear of spending the money, my threat to my sense of safety and security was very much real. So I think it's really important to acknowledge both of those things because this is going to come up in further examples where I didn't have money, where I'm in debt, where I don't know how I'm going to pay my rent this month, where I don't know where the money is going to come from. And so, whether I have the money or don't have the money, my relationship to safety and security is still my relationship to safety and security. And that is always the thing, and really the only thing that we ever really have control over. That's really the only thing that we have autonomy over. Our need for safety and survival will always be there. It is intelligent, it is what's keeping us alive, and it will never go away. It's not supposed to. So I just want to say this right here and right now that killing off your need for survival, your physical survival, that whole spiritual belief, that whole sense of like ascension, it's not what we're here for. We incarnated in a world that uses money as currency, as a tool to get the resources we need for our survival. It's not an accident. However, our relationship to the physical world is the thing where we hold sovereignty, where we hold agency. We can have a whole lot of wealth, physical wealth, and feel a huge sense of scarcity at the same time, right? And this happens. This happens with people who are billionaires and millionaires and feel the need to keep on hoarding and hoarding and hoarding because that sense of safety and security is just like driving, right? There are people that are very wealthy that actually can't rest in their own wealth. I remember actually reading an example of this in, I can't remember which book this was, but it was, hmm, anyway, it was a male money coach, and he was talking about a billionaire client who was was freaking out about to his wife about how much she was spending on toilet paper, which is really funny, right? Because it's like when you're a billionaire, um, if you save 2 cents on toilet paper, it shouldn't really matter, right? But it was actually tied for him to like much deeper rooted beliefs in his childhood when it came to security, when it came to safety. So it's not either or, it's both. And I also want to remind you that if you are in a place, so if you are in a place where you are worried about how to pay your rent, if you are in a place where maybe you are under major financial duress, I want you to be able to give yourself a break, give yourself grace and some kindness and some compassion because the sense of fear that you are feeling is real. It's not pretend. And so at the same time, I want to remind you that there is hope because your relationship to yourself and your own agency, it's also the thing that can get you to move to a different place. It's also the thing that can carry you to have a different experience. However, I also just want to give permission to the experience that you're having right now, right? Because when we are under actual financial duress, our nervous system, our animal being, is living in a state of survival mode. And we cannot meditate ourselves out of that. We have to fully acknowledge the trauma of that. And even if you are financially in a place of security right now, and you have previously come from a place of major financial trauma, it's important to also acknowledge that experience that you carry in your cells, in your nervous system, in your muscle memory of that trauma, because it's also likely driving the decisions that you are currently making right now. It's important to acknowledge our fears, and it's important to acknowledge that survival intelligence. Hmm. So, how do we move forward? What are some of the things we can actually do to help merge these spiritual teachings around abundance, these more, hmm, I want to say ethereal, they're not necessarily ethereal, but it's like, how do we bring these concepts into the physical world, right? Like, how do we actually land them in our bodies? How do we work with them in a physical way? So here's where I'm going to talk a little bit about my approach to not just money, but my whole approach to life and my relationship really to the physical world. One of the things that I learned in my life and the work that I do is that we can have challenging experiences, things like chronic pain, things like chronic illness, things like toxic relationship patterns that we're working through, things like trauma, things like challenging physical circumstances, financial circumstances, loss. We can we can experience these things because we're actually being held by a bigger thing. And you can call that great spirit. I like to think of it as great mystery. You can think of it as God, Sophia. You can think of it as the universal life force that holds us all. But this is the thing is we as individuals are a reflection of this force. If you think about the intelligence that literally formed every single cell in our bodies, that formed our lungs, that formed our heart, that formed everything, like my hands, there is a deeper intelligent current that has co-created this experience for us, this very physical experience for us. This is the resource that we are always connected to. And we can actually connect to it by being in physical relationship, in conscious relationship to our physical presence. I like to call this embodiment. Embodiment really simply is being present and being conscious in the moment of your experience of your body. And it's being in relationship to the bigger field that has created us through the expression of our body. It's being in relationship to both God, goddess, universe, and cell simultaneously at the same time. It's a relationship that's happening right now as we are co-creating, as we are existing, as we are breathing, as we are being. This is the thing that actually allows us to remember an inherent sense of safety, an inherent knowing that we are inherently taken care of here. When you were an embryo, when you were actually pre-embryo, when you were actually an egg, pre-fertilization, your spirit knew that there was a potential there. That bigger knowing of spirit used the expression of the egg, of the sperm, of this merging in order to create the physical experience and expression that eventually became our body, that eventually became our nervous system, our heart, our blood. There is an intelligence that is working through us, in us, that is us. So, my question to you is that if we can actually have a co-creative and current and real relationship with this life force, that is who we are, that is actually the seed of where our sense of security and safety and well-being actually comes from. That bigger thing can actually hold, just like, when we're a child, having like, our ideal parent couples, right? Imagine as you're feeling like, when you're like a little kid version of yourself and you're really, really scared and you have these two magical earth beings holding you from all sides, helping you feel safe and secure and loved and belonging in your body. With that knowing in your body, what kind of decisions would you make for yourself? What kind of job would you choose? What kind of career would you pursue? How would you relate to other people in romantic relationships? How would you work with your sexual energy in those relationships to self express? What parts of your wholeness would be free to emerge and exist? You see, the sense of physical safety and security is of vital importance for us to actually get to feel safe enough to fully express ourselves. And money is a part of that. It's also not the whole story, right? So these abundance teachers are right, but your nervous system is also right at the same time. If we are trying to work through trauma without actually having a sense of feeling safe and being held, it's like that small child being scared, feeling alone without the two parents to hold him or her, right? So it's like, imagine you're that child and you have those two parents holding you, loving you in full and unconditional love and support. Like, imagine that feeling and imagine the decisions you make from that feeling, right? And now imagine that feeling of feeling scared or whatever experience you're having, and you don't have that, right? What happens is we go into a trauma response when we don't have the ground, when we feel like the ground and the earth has been pulled out from under us. Our intelligence automatically goes into trauma response. We go into fight, we go into flight, we go into freeze. We go into catatonic state where we maybe check out and we don't come back in. And while those are intelligent responses, if we live there, we never actually fully live presently in the physical world. And so we struggle with manifesting. We struggle with our relationship with the physical world because we're actually not in relationship with our own bodies, right? It's like there's this mantra in the world of, like, body workers and healers that says you have to feel it to heal it. And it's true, you have to feel the thing in your body in order to heal the thing in your body, but you also have to be present in your body to be able to feel the thing. And you have to feel safe enough to be in your body, to come back into your body. You have to be safe enough in your relationship with the physical world in order to feel that it's okay to be in it, to be present in it. So that foundation must be met before we can heal the thing. The thing often actually resolves itself when we're able to heal our relationship with the physical plane, find safety and belonging in the physical plane as a whole. That's actually the deeper thing we're looking for when it comes to money. And it's also the paradox in that even if we're good at accumulating the thing, we may never feel safe in the thing or the havingness of the thing. And here I'm talking about money, but you know that abundance is actually more than just about money, right? It's about time, it's about your energy, it's about your health, it's about your relationships. It's about what you want your life to actually really look like and being in resonance and feeling like it's enough. The havingness of enough, the beingness of enough. It's the essential knowing that you are inherently enough, right? The not feeling enoughness is actually what drives us in these like addictive patterns. So here is my invitation. Um, I this is the work that I do. So the work that I do is really helping and guiding a relationship with yourself. It is really how can we come back to that embryonic or embryologic intelligence? Do you currently have a relationship with that part of you? The part of you that grew you, the part of you that knows that you are inherently that you inherently belong here, that you inherently have a right to exist, that you inherently have a right to express yourself in all of the ways that you came here to express yourself fully in human form. My work is about what is your current relationship with that, and how can we actually explore your relationship with that in order to feel more of a sense of love and belonging and enoughness in your being. How can we co create this relationship with our universal potential? Helping you find this place that is unique to you. We all have a different path in order to find this place within us. But this is the place where we root our desires. This is literally like the earth, the fertile, dark, wet earth, where we can plant the seeds of our manifestation. Whether that manifestation be a new relationship, whether it be your vocation, your sense of purpose here, whether it be creative expression, whether it be writing a book or creating a new project, whether it's taking some kind of risk and adventure. In order to take risk, we need an inherent sense of earth and landing in order to be able to make the leap from. So currently, there are a couple containers. One is a personal custom retreat in Mexico with me. These retreats are individual, so they're not group. It is a one-on-one experience with the land, with the physical land here, and its resonance in helping you actually land into your body, into your land. I call this the wilderness. So that is one experience that is a kind of a timeless running experience. So that might be something that you are looking for. There's a beautiful potency in the retreat experience. However, there's also another piece that is a deeper dive journey that I wanted to invite you in. And this particular process I like to call rebirthing. It is the process of actually reconnecting back to that embryo that I was talking about earlier. It's actually about meeting yourself in your own origins. And it is much like any human gestational process, a 9-month reconnection to you, the essence of you, rerouting your soul into your body. And it is a process of actually me guiding you through the experience of when your soul decided to actually implant and land here on this earth, in this plane, and working through your own 9-month embryological process all the way up through, at the end, a rebirthing ceremony, which there are a couple options, but one that I highly recommend is to actually do the ceremony here in Mexico as a personal retreat. And it is also, this is a virtual experience, it's a virtual somatic experience. However, I highly recommend, we have the option always to do ceremony in our own space. And that might be appropriate for some of you, but I highly um, recommend. There's something really special about this particular land that I'm currently recording on, this particular land that has actually called me here, that is in support of our own embryological process. So if you are curious, if you are wanting to dive deeper into this process of how can you actually reconnect with your own relationship with your own intelligent, biological, embryological process, and also resolve and heal and meet any places or pieces of stickiness or re-storytelling along the way. These are also opportunities for us to actually come back to what true sovereignty really actually means and feels like on a cellular level. And some of the potential experiences that can come from this kind of journey are things like deep healing around lifelong trauma patterns. It can be also surprising. It's always surprising, by the way. We don't know what's going to come through, but it's always surprising. And it's always surprising in a hopeful way. There's always these incredible pieces of hope and power that we often don't really even realize we had that come to life. There are new resources that we discover, new ways to tap into, energy to tap into, creative force to tap into, new ways of doing things. This is a place where we get to reconnect to our capacity to innovate in our lives. So there is a place of actually rooting in a really powerful way in our own sovereignty and agency and capacity to make decisions for ourselves in a powerful and anchored way. Because when we can actually anchor it in a cellular way, there isn't self abandonment. all of those patterns of self-abandonment can be held, but aren't necessarily, they're no longer the deciding factor, the driving force of moving in our lives, of anchoring in our lives. So, this 9-month process, I'm going to be starting applications for. If you would like to apply, you can simply contact me. I will have contact information somewhere below. And the application process is a conversation. It's a conversation with me. Um, that that is that is the application process right there. Um, the way that the conversations work is really simply an organic conversation about what you want, what you're looking for, and also helping to anchor in whether this is a really a no for you or whether it's really a yes for you. For me, it's really important that we're honoring our inner yes to things. I have this mantra that I am working with, and I've really worked with my whole life, but I'm really anchoring into being able to really recognize when I am truly a yes for something, and then having the courage to actually say yes to the thing. And there's so many opportunities and things that I would like to be a yes for, and I'm actually a no for. And having the courage and the wisdom to say no, even though sometimes those things can look really beautiful and delicious. And so if having a conversation with me feels like in your body a true automatic yes, I invite you to reach out, even if you don't know where the conversation's going to go. And honor that even if this sounds really cool and it sounds really interesting and it sounds like, oh my gosh, that's so yum, but there is an internal no, or maybe, or I have to think about this, or it's like, oh, that sounds really interesting and cool, but it's a no. Just honor that. I also want to touch and refine too the place where sometimes we can also shut down our yes. The yes is an impulse, it's a body response, it's a yes. So even if you don't know if you have the time, the money, the resources, or any other thing in order to move to the next steps in this thing, I still invite you to say yes to the conversation. Say yes to your initial yes. The way that I work, there is not a pressure into moving further than your own natural embodied yes. So, my invitation is, if this is a resonant thing for you, to act upon your yes in that first step of reaching out. I don't know whether you're still going to feel that yes when we actually have a conversation with each other. But I also don't know until we find out in the moment, right? So you don't know until you say yes first. Perhaps it's just a conversation, or perhaps it really is something that is needing and calling you on a soul level to deeply explore more. What I do know is that if we don't say the initial yes to the first part of the thing, we won't know. We won't know. Hmm. So don't worry about the rest. Just recognize that initial yes or no and act upon it. No, thank you is totally okay. Mm. Okay. I That feels complete to me again. If you made it this far, I just wanted to let you know that I appreciate you. And I hope that somewhere along saying yes to this conversation has somehow brought a sense of harmony and integration into your sense of being in this moment. I hope that it has been a helpful and fruitful conversation. If the work of surrender, if the work of curiosity, if the work of rooting in true safety and true security in the physical world is something that you are feeling a resonant yes to, my invitation is to send me a message, send me an email, connect with me directly to set up a conversation. Let's have a conversation and see where your yes or no goes from there. Again, 9 months of rebirthing and repatterning our sense of belonging here, our sense of being home in our body, being home in our being, and being home in our full self expression, all of the thing, our too muchness, our not enoughness, our whole being, letting it emerge and be born fresh and new and more deeply rooted here on this earth. My name is Jen Plotnikoff, and thank you for listening to this teach. I will see you soon.